Welcome to episode 197 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I chat with Brisbane Lions Anthony Alsop on how the Lions push the envelope to rise above the digital chatter.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who's finding great links via Refind, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to Sports Geek. And I am really liking Refined. Check it out. Refined is an app. It does a lot of the things that Nuzzle does really well, but it is finding some really cool links, both in the app and in the email updates. As always, you can contact me at Sean Callanan or at Sports Geek. And as always, I would love to work with podcast listeners. If you ever want to contact me, you can do so on all of those channels. You can just go to sportsgeekhq.com/work and figure out a way how we can work together. I'm recording this a few days, 36 hours. I'm, again, a little bit jet lagged after coming back from Montreal, going to C2. Absolutely loved it. I'll talk a little bit more about C2 Montreal and C2 Melbourne after this chat. I caught up with Anthony Alsop. He is at the Brisbane Lions, and he has an interesting tale to tell in that he's gone full circle. He's now General Manager of Communications at the Brisbane Lions. He's been that since 2017. So I hope you enjoy my chat with Anthony Alsop of the Brisbane Lions. Very happy to be here at the home of the Brisbane Lions, the Gabba, and also the Hyundai Centre where all the offices are. I'm here with Anthony Alsop, the GM of Communications at the Brisbane Lions. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
So I wanted to catch up with you while I'm here in Brisbane because you've got an interesting backstory to where you got to this role. And so before we get into that and your role at the Lions and what you know of the Lions, you know, since you've started here, how did you get your start in this in the sports space?
It's a long story now, but I graduated uni with an e-commerce degree. They don't even offer that anymore, which is a bit sad. It's a good way to make me feel old, but everything's e-commerce these days.
Yeah.
I remember those classes we were talking about how shops could be open online 24/7, and
who would have thunk it?
Yeah. It was amazing at the time. Graduated with that. Went into like IT sales.
Yep.
And was in there for 18 months or so, and went overseas and came back and just said, I have to get into sport. So I tried my hardest and kept failing for a full-time job, but I had like part-time jobs around the Australian Open, working in statistics there with Melbourne Tigers basketball. And then after that, so I kind of forced my way in the sense that I knew I loved sport and I always had a computer around. So I loved tech and digital and things like that. And just kind of started a blog off my sister's advice, which she reminds me of constantly to kind of get noticed. Because I think there really weren't that many people involved in it at a time.
No, this is, same, so this is 2009, 2010. Bloggers were new and there wasn't many people commenting and producing content and saying, hey, this is what this digital space is doing, and so, it was a pretty small world. And like, that's how we first, crossed paths.
Yeah.
And, from there you did a conference, sort of brought people together. Some of the people have been on the podcast, like Jeremy McPeak and stuff like that.
Yep.
What was that kind of experience like?
It was, daunting at first, again, trying to crack into an industry, you don't have many contacts. So it's really about getting to know people.
Yep.
And like, proving to yourself that you know what you're talking about, because there weren't that many people out there. Like you said, there was yourself, a couple of people at AFL Clubland, but really there weren't that many.
Yep.
But it was a space that was exploding really fast and people were really interested, but they also didn't really know or they really didn't think they knew what they were talking about. So getting someone out here like Jeremy, I thought was really important. We thought was really important. And then I remember saying to him, like the day before we went on stage, like I said, mate, you're going to be a rock star for the next 24 hours. You're going to be loved. Everyone's wanting to speak to you. And he just goes, oh, no, I'm not. Like, I just do a boring job over there. And then at the end of the day, he came and saw me. He's like, Anthony, I can't believe it. Like, I've given out so many business cards. I've I've had so many invites to things, and he just couldn't believe how popular he was. But there was just a real thirst for knowledge back then.
Yep.
And I think in Australia at the time, we all looked overseas and said, "Oh, what are they doing? That must be the best."
Yep.
Kind of thing. But yeah, putting conference together, we had at the MCG, 150 people turned up. It was a great way to get a foot in the door for me as well. And then a couple of weeks after that, got offered a job at Richmond. They were just getting into digital as well for the first time. So they created a digital marketing manager role.
And so again, that was, 2010?
2010, yeah.
2010. So again, it was as the teams were both, not just in Australia, but, globally, we're starting to see, how do we use Facebook?
Yeah.
Instagram was just new. Like you probably set up the account.
I don't think it even started just in 2010,
and tweet, everyone was learning how to tweet and Twitter and what are hashtags and those kind of things. So you were in that same space that, Jeremy tells the story of getting the fax from the NBA saying, hey, we're going to do a website, we're going to do these things. Not quite at that level.
Not that old, yeah.
But the social element and being able to harness that's where you were at Richmond?
Yeah. I mean, the main priority for me at the time was like website and email, the database, and then the social, like the page. I think Facebook, we had maybe like 12,000 fans or something when I started. I remember a couple of weeks after I started, Ben Cousins retired, and I went down with the camera, took a bunch of photos, and everybody was telling me it was the biggest press conference they'd ever seen.
Yep.
It was probably my first one, probably, yeah. And there was about 60 people there, journos, all the players were there. Took a bunch of photos, went back to the desk, posted it on Facebook, and the first comment was, wow, that happened like 5 minutes ago. That's amazing. Because there was a little clock in the background and people were amazed that, something had happened that recently was now up on Facebook. So that's where we were at that stage.
Yep.
And then, just really about building an audience, growing an audience.
And so it was also then building out that team because, I joke when I started Sports Geeks, it's at the same time when teams had a webmaster.
Yeah.
And then again, harking back to Jeremy, that was his Twitter handle.
Yep.
Right? There was one person updating the website. So you were going from this one person to, hey, this content thing's working. The website, we're getting traffic on the website. Our videos are getting more traction. And so you went through that, that phase of we're hiring more video people because it's delivering with Richmond.
Yeah, well, for the first 18 months, I think I did everything really. So I tried to I was far from a video expert, so I tried to get video interns in. Up until I arrived, the media manager had done it all. So they were doing the media job and the digital job, which now would be impossible. But it was it just wasn't as front of mind as it obviously is today. And then, so we just tried to pump out as more content as we could. I was really leaning on interns at the time. And then I reckon at the end of my first full year, that's when we got additional people in terms of video, graphic design, all that kind of stuff. And then, started to build out a team. It
started being a team, multiple people doing things.
Yep.
And so from the Richmond job, you left Richmond and then went?
Yep. I was there for Richmond for 5 years.
Yep.
And then I went to move to New York to work at the NBA.
And so what was that role in the NBA?
So it was a digital products specialist, which focused on the international market. So all the apps that we see overseas are different to what people in America get.
Yep.
So there's a lot of like domestic contracts they have with, the local telecoms over there. And so the international ones that we see, they're kind of essentially run by the NBA themselves.
Yep.
So we were in the New Jersey office there, working on, League Pass, NBA.com international website, and then all the versions of the app. So there are 14 versions of the app.
Yep.
And just trying to deliver the best products we can.
And so what was some of your lessons, being on, spending 5 years in, what we term over here in Australia, clubland, and trying to do the best for the club and work with the league, but then working at the league level and trying to serve what the league wants, but then also trying to see what the teams are doing, because all the teams in the NBA do a remarkable job. There's a whole TeamBo, team marketing, business operations that both leverage and, amplify what the teams are doing. Did you get that perspective from the league level work in the NBA?
Oh, absolutely. So I actually sat next to the digital TeamBo guys, essentially.
Yep.
So they have about, there's 3 team reps, so they have about 10 clubs per team they all manage. And it's all about best practice. So, if one team's doing really well, like that team rep would often send content around to the other guys going, hey, just letting you know this is what these guys do really well. And that's the basis of TeamBo, right? You have your best match day or game day experience stuff. And then if you watch League Pass these days, you realize that every team across the country is all doing the same stuff now.
Yeah.
But that's because TeamBo does a really good job of getting back to all the other teams, letting them know what works in terms of whatever it is, like ticketing, match day events, all that kind of stuff, and digital's the same. I think moving to the NBA was a bit of a shock in terms of just scale, because there's just everything they do is so big. Like, their things really were global mobile, global first, mobile first. People were paying for these products, so it's also a customer service thing. So, you need to make sure people are happy with those kind of stuff. And you're dealing with frontline customers who are on the other side of the world and can be, just those kind of global things were tricky. Like, you'd get people complaining from England that we'd show the scores as spoilers. Because when they wake up, the games happen there about 2 a.m.-ish. They'd wake up and see the scores and they'd crack the shit. And then, whereas, Australia and Asia countries loved it, because that was always live for them in prime time. And then Canada would be complaining about not getting enough games because they'd be blacked out for their local TV market. So, lots of varying issues with various countries all across the world.
But I think one of the things, and I've always, said the NBA does a terrific job in growing the game and letting the fans consume it and also promote it. Like the fact that they're not doing the whack-a-mole approach with all of their content to say, you can't share that, you can't share that, you can't share that. Even I was listening to a podcast recently with Worldwide Wob, who pretty much became a content piece because he was vining highlights and then sharing them. And, the easiest thing for the NBA to do would have been said to shut down Vine. We don't want those highlights. Come back to League Pass. But, that recent article from interview with Adam Silver where the whole snacks become meals, he goes, well, we know if people are snacking on these highlights, they're going to want to watch it on my device, on my big screen TV. And just that approach is, the growth in the international side of the NBA has been phenomenal because of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they've always led world sport. And like over, when you live overseas and you saw it more so domestically, I think too, like you just see the big difference, like the NFL clamped down on their highlights particularly. But then you compare the growth internationally, I think, of the NFL versus the NBA, especially the last 5-10 years, and you just can't compare. NBA just gone ahead in leaps and bounds. And Adam's very digital first. He's, he used to work at NBA Entertainment, so he'd seen the power of like having all those rights. And interesting how they've launched this Michael Jordan documentary this morning, and that's really only. That can only really happen because 30 years ago, David Stern said TV is going to be huge in the future, and they held all their own rights. They filmed everything. They logged it all. Going back, and I used to walk past the loggers and when they'd be doing all those documentaries and having to watch through the entire 93-94 Houston Rockets season so they can get 10 highlights out of it that last about a minute. Very time consuming, but that leads to a great piece of content, and that's all possible because they own all their rights. They were really had a lot of foresight back in the late 80s. They've just always been really great with content. Back in the day it was TV, now it's digital. They've just always been at the forefront of that.
And the good thing is now, unfortunately for those loggers, the tech is now can just run over it. Like the guys at WSC can just run over that tape and say, "Oh, you want Hakeem, left block hook shots," and it just spits out the video. So having that bank of content, but then also having all these channels, definitely grows the game. So how long you were at the NBA for?
Just over a year. But even like you mentioned WSC, right? So like we were in the global content team, so that we'd have global content meetings all the time. And even just having an invention like WSC, which is an algorithmically based highlight clipping tool, meant that, if we were having a call with the Brazilian office or the French office, whatever, they could set up their algorithms and just clip up, give me all of Boris Diaw highlights today if he scores 10 points or more. From an Aussie point of view, it was all about Matthew Dellavedova, if he does anything well, Bogut, all that kind of stuff. And then they get highlights out so quickly. And then
back to your question, your point before about the Ben Cousins. Hey, look, we can see the clock, and people were amazed at an hour turnaround. Now it's like you'll turn away from your TV while you're watching the game, and the clip's already on Twitter.
I'm getting a notification on the NBA app now. Ben Simmons just dunked, tune into League Pass now, all that kind of stuff. So even just sending out the notification, there's a lot of thought process going into that. We used to send emails around about 10 of us, getting the wording right, doing yada, yada, yada. So, they've just got a whole massive team of people focused on global content.
Yeah, I think I'd have to go back to the numbers, but when I talked to Aviv from WSC, it went from 300 videos going out today to 1,500.
Yeah.
Because the system just turned on.
Yeah.
And you can just set up the rules that say, when an Aussie does well, show the Australians. Or when a global player does well, show everybody.
Yeah.
And that's some of the options. So you're at the NBA for a year.
Yep.
Where did you go from there?
I came back to Australia to lead the digital sport efforts for Channel 7.
Yep.
I thought that'd be really exciting. So Channel 7 is like the NBC equivalent.
Yep. It's one of three, I guess, commercial channels here in Australia.
Yep.
A leader in sport, what people would say.
Yeah, so they have Olympic rights. They have AFL, which is the biggest sport in terms of TV here. Just Wimbledon, a whole bunch of Australian Open, all the summer series. So there's a lot of great sports content Channel 7 has. And they just launched a 7 tennis digital product for the first time.
Yep.
And I was coming in for year 2 of that. So we were able to, I think it was one of Australia's real first over-the-top digital sport platforms.
Multi-platform.
Yeah.
We're going to run it on both of our TV channels, but if you've got the app on your phone or on your iPad, you can stream, court 27 of the tennis. And it was and it was also done, I think also with the Olympics was one of the first.
Yep.
But it was just changing the behavior, but also going to where the behavior was because the demand was there for, I want to watch this particular game or I want to watch this particular angle. And it's sort of the start, at least in Australia. And it was the same thing was happening in the world that the broadcasters are going to say, we're going to play more in this digital space.
And it really was the marketing was your match, your match, your device.
Yeah.
As you said, if it was on court 18 and your favorite player was from some random country but wouldn't get on Channel 7, you can still watch that player anywhere you are in Australia.
Yep.
On your computer, on your phone, your iPad or whatever. And I think we did that for $14 for 2 weeks or whatever it was. You also got access to live HD streams. You could do full match replays that we chose matches to go on there. We had social media team on the ground for the first time. So it wasn't just the live feed and broadcast stuff we were putting out there. It was also just behind the scenes of, here's the journos coming out, here's the person, escorting the players out to the court, all that kind of thing. So that was really cool. Olympics obviously is a massive event. That was a little bit different because we picked up a product made by the IOC.
Yep.
So we had a little bit less control over that. So a few more problems, unfortunately, early on. But after that, it was, it's an amazing 2.5 weeks to work in. The Aussie Boomers played Team USA one morning and Telstra told us that 25% of all streaming data in the country was streaming that game.
Yep.
When you hear those kind of numbers, it's a big platform, it's a big audience. So, you want to make things work really well, but it's amazing to work on a product like that. The really good thing about working on that time too is that you see record numbers like Facebook views were getting in the tens of millions, all that kind of thing. So, Usain Bolt highlights would just go nuts every day. They'd be locked to Australia only, but they'd be going insane. But the only problem is once you go on to work anywhere else, you'll never see those numbers again, unfortunately. But the numbers we saw, social, streaming.
But it was also
everything.
I guess almost the peak for broadcasters and publishers on platforms like Facebook.
100%.
Because we've seen, since, that time, 2012, 2013, 2014 was when, Facebook opened up the tap and said, we want it to be the personalised newspaper.
Yeah.
We want you to be there. And they gave everyone free access. And, over the last 12, 18 months, they've started to turn the screws a little bit to say, oh, well, we actually want people to stay on our site. We don't want them to send them to your site. So that was I was talking to some digital publishers the other day and, they're getting absolutely smashed with the falling traffic. And we're seeing that, across the board with, both teams, leagues, that the traffic that they're getting from channels, Facebook is dropping, considering it was such a big chunk of all digital publishers' traffic. But, that would have been the heyday.
Oh, absolutely. And just, the numbers were insane. And, so Facebook loved us. Google helped us out, putting us in their little card boxes. And so anything, if you search Usain Bolt Olympics in Australia, you went straight to our YouTube page.
Yep.
All the the videos would play in line. Like, it was great. But, I mean, they obviously invested a lot as a business into that, so you want to get some returns. And it was just really good to see, digital advertising and digital first at scale.
Yep.
Because, it was just a huge production. The whole office from Melbourne, essentially, we moved up to Sydney. There was 300 staff there. So, you'd walk past Mel McLaughlin doing a live thing down to our digital office, and then, we all worked as one. So it was a really great event. I think everybody at Seven made a profit. Digital made a profit. TV made their biggest profit in a while, I think.
Yep.
From that point of view, it was a great success.
And so from Channel 7, you found yourself here at the Lions in the GM of Comms role.
Yep.
So
had to scratch the itch to get back into the clubland.
So was it a bit that way of being on the being at league side, product side, being at broadcast product space, and go, I really miss the storytelling, the camaraderie of what Clubland offers?
That was it. Yeah. I mean, ever since I worked out I was not going to be a professional athlete, which is very early on for me. I wanted to be involved at the coalface.
Yep.
I really enjoyed my time at a league and a broadcaster, but you just can't beat being at a club from my point of view. I love the ups and downs. Unfortunately, at the moment, there's probably a few more downs as we're not winning very often. But, the atmosphere around the office, the team upstairs, all the admin and the footy guys downstairs, you wouldn't know we were bottom of the ladder, even though we are at the moment. When you walk around, everyone's still in a great attitude. But then it all happens again this weekend. So, I love that aspect of it. So
that is the good thing about sport, especially in Clubland, is you get a reset every 7 days. So even if, at the moment we're recording this and you're 0-8, you still have fans that will stick fat.
Yep.
That come Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they're like, well, this is the week.
Yep, 100%.
And you've got to embrace them, especially these times, because when that win comes, that they'll be the first in line to cheer, and so will everyone else. So it's just a bit of staying the course. So take us through, what does your team look like now? Because it gives us the comparison of when you started Richmond as the digital guy.
Yeah.
What's the comms team at the Lions look like?
Yeah. So essentially, the comms team looks after the media and marketing for the club here.
Yep.
So we essentially have two teams, like a media team that we involves our media, our digital, and our video.
Yep.
And then we have a marketing team that involves our marketing, our design, and then our match day experience. So we have two people looking after video. We have two people looking after digital. Myself and our media manager looking after media. Two graphic designers, two marketers, and then a match day or an experienced fan development type person. Because up here at the Gabba, we control a lot more of the match day than Victorian teams tend to do.
Yep.
So we have a lot of involvement with the match day experience here. So all up a team of 11.
Okay. So that is a big improvement from one.
Yeah.
And again, if you look back today, you go, oh, how did I do all of that? So just to give people context from the market point of view, Brisbane is a unique. Brisbane Lions are a unique team in that they're a merged entity between the Brisbane Bears, who are an expansion club, and then the Fitzroy Football Club, which was a Melbourne club that was effectively on its knees financially. And so that's now a merged entity in the Brisbane market. As someone who's come from Melbourne, and Melbourne is very much an AFL town, you are now in sunny Queensland. Weather is terrific, but it's not an AFL. It's not AFL territory at all. The Broncos are the big brand NRL. It's rugby country up here. What's it like? What's the difference like being the challenger brand, challenger team in this market?
Well, that was for me part of the challenge, and that's part of what drew me to the role. I thought, the teams, the bottom end of the ladder. There was a lot of bad publicity around the club, but I thought getting back up to the top would be a really fun challenge.
And it's not that it has not had success. So again, for the context for
US,
it had a three-peat and is one of the greatest teams. What was that?
It's 2001, 2003.
Yes, unfortunately, Collingwood lost to two of those grand finals, so it brings open wounds. And it's known as one of the greatest teams of the modern era. So it's not like they haven't tasted success here, but it's still a challenge, and you've got to fight your way back up. So sorry.
Yep. No. So, as a business, we obviously look back on the halcyon days when the place was sold out on weekends. Membership numbers are really high. And, all of our players had frontline media gigs, reading the news on local television, all that kind of stuff. But, just reality, when you're not winning as much, those opportunities don't come. Rugby league, definitely number one up here. But I think the market up here, they like winners.
Yep.
And to be fair to Brisbane locals, we haven't given them that opportunity a lot lately in the last decade or so. So we've seen that when the club is up and about, there's interest there, not only mainstream, but the general sporting person of Brisbane also has an interest in AFL.
Yep.
So I think that when everything turns, and we're confident that it's slowly turning at the moment, with a lot of young players re-signing and all the good feelings of young talented kids coming to the club. So we think it'll turn, and we're kind of preparing for that now.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of my time at Richmond when I joined in 2010. They'd started the season 0-9. They were called the worst team since Fitzroy. And then last year, 7 years later, they've won the premiership. They're the toast of the town and on and off field.
Yeah, now at 93,000 members, I think, which is, ridiculous numbers.
Yep, and you speak about all those fans sticking fat. Well, in those tough times at Richmond, who had the very tough times, the reward comes and they're very happy at the moment. So I kind of see it, I'm very biased, but I see it in a similar path. Club was at a pretty low point, but a lot of youth has come in, new regime in terms of football people, just a new attitude come to the club, and I'm pretty confident it'll turn.
And the thing is that you've got, you're not doing it with no history. The fact that you've, and this is the challenge for the two new franchises that are in the AFL, that they're trying to build a history. The fact that the Bears, the Lions, and then the merger, and then the success, you've got history. And there's even that, the kids that grew up watching those three-peat and those premierships, eventually, they'll be ready to come back and be welcomed back into the fold. So it's really your team to, tell the story and sell that hope, which is that's all we do in sport. Yeah. We just sell hope of the young stars and the people coming through to say, what do I want to get on board? Yeah.
Well, so we had our Melbourne family day on the weekend, and we have a large chunk of members still in Melbourne. And again, we're 0-8. We haven't started well, but there was an absolutely great turnout on the weekend. So I think we had nearly 2,000 fans rolled through. Really good feel about the place. They can see we're on the right path, and they're very understanding, and they want us to win as much as we do. Don't get us wrong there, but it's a two city, one team mentality.
Yep.
We still have a lot of Melbourne events and trying to keep those guys on board because they're absolutely a part of the club and a part of the history. And the boardroom just across the way, the big painting on the wall, the first premiership was in 1898 for this club. So it's obviously the start of Fitzroy, but on our history, that's when our premierships start, or at the beginning of the premiership start in the 1800s. So a lot of history to this place, and it's when the times are good, the times are good, and we're going through a rough trot at the moment on the field, but we're quite confident that we're setting ourselves up for future success.
And the other path for growth is your new teams. Like the fact now that you're in AFL Women's and you're developing that, and they're having some success on the field. What's it been like, in the club to be introducing a new team, new vibe, new fans, because you'll be getting, what AFL Women's has sort of unearthed is these fans that have never followed AFL, but they want to follow the women's game. What's it been like from your side of the desk?
Absolutely. I think it's been a bit of fresh air for the club, to be honest. We've made the grand final the 2 years the competition's been running. We haven't won either, unfortunately. We've run her up both times, but it's great to know the girls' stories. Just learning all about their backgrounds and the histories and how they found footy or what sport they've come from and what they've changed to. It's from a storytelling point of view, it's really refreshing. We have people in the army, we have doctors, we have teachers who also just happen to be footballers for us on the weekend as well. That's
the thing, when I caught up with a couple of the girls from the Bulldogs, coming from speed skating and netball, it's because there was no pathways there to play footy, and so they've all been pulled back. They might have played up till 10 or 12 or 13, and then they said, sorry, you can't play with the boys. And now now the league's there, which gives them something to play for, and the pathways are starting to be put in place. And, the numbers for women playing footy in the last 18 months have been going through the roof, but it's such a big opportunity. And the stuff about the story stuff, you're finding out the stories as just as the fans are as well.
Absolutely.
Like you're documenting these stories and being intrigued by them as you're delivering them, which isn't normally the case.
Yeah. But it's not only that, but like, when we go to training in Melbourne and the girls rock up and, the dads bring their girls along and all the girls come up and go, I want to be you in 10 years or I want to be drafted for the Brisbane Lions. And 2 years ago, they couldn't say that. Yep. But now, it's just opened up a whole new possibility for young girls all across the country who now say, I can be a professional footballer. And you see that at games, like the turnouts obviously in Brisbane are fantastic, but our audiences in Melbourne are amazing. We had the Fitzroy girls teams, they lead the girls out when we play in Melbourne, all that kind of stuff. Like there's such a connection back there as we talked about. But yeah, it just brings a new era of hope for these girls saying, well, I can play footy just like my brother did, my dad did, whatever. Nothing's changed now and I can go play for my favourite team. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about, because, working at Richmond and working in the Melbourne footy environment, there's a bit of hierarchy and you're this type of club and you can do this and, there's the big four and then, how they go about doing this. Because you're up here and you're not in the footy bubble, is there a bit more room to move? Is there things that you can do that you probably couldn't have done at Richmond? Absolutely. It's a matter of just getting more noticed, I guess. Yep. So there's some things we do up here content-wise that I would never have even considered doing in Richmond. Just, again, because of the status you're in. And in football in Melbourne, it's life and death. Yep. You know what I mean? Whereas up here, it's not as such. So we definitely have a bit more fun with our content up here. Our season fixture video last year, when we launched our fixture last year, we may have poked fun at other teams, and I never would have done that at Richmond.
But it also it's because you're not in this environment. You're not going to be put on the back page of the Herald Sun and have Robbo, spewing obscenities at you on AFL 360, because that would happen in the Melbourne environment, and it would happen with a big traditional club. Say, oh, you can't do that. What have you done? You can't. Where here, you get put on Channel 7 or the Courier Mail goes, oh, look at the guys at the Lions having a good old laugh. Check this out. And it's
good for us.
It's a completely different environment. It opens you up to new fans. Oh, these guys are fun. I want to check out. And because you're still in education mode up here.
Yep. Oh, I think we always will be as a sport. Absolutely. But also when it comes to the players, like there are just less requests up here. Yep. So the players are more willing to do, on the whole, more willing to do more things or say yes to things. And we're also very lucky that we have a couple of guys who are willing to make themselves look stupid or take the mickey out of themselves. So last year, Mitch Robinson did a merchandise video for us that took off Zoolander. Yep. And so we always try and do one crazy, silly video a year, and we determined that was going to be it. And he got into it 100%. We loved him for it. Liam Dawson, another player there who did it for us. And that probably was our number one video last year. It got on Channel 7 broadcast 2 or 3 weeks in a row. It got on all the footy sites. It did everything. It went unbelievably viral in the footy media world. But again, it's something you probably wouldn't do in Melbourne if you're a big Melbourne club, because you just can't be seen to be taking footy as a joke. And we don't, obviously. Yep. But we can have a bit more fun with our content, and the guys are willing to do that. Which was, from our point of view, it's like from a content point of view, it's really great. Because
you do have to have that broader scope of, because, the big clubs, they know they've got their 100,000, 200,000 fans that are rusted on. Yep. Like, I'm a Collingwood supporter because my dad was a Collingwood supporter, because my granddad was a Collingwood supporter, because my great-granddad played for Collingwood. Like, I didn't have a choice. Yeah. Whereas here, everyone's got a choice. Right, and whether they are native to Brisbane and, well, okay, it's Brisbane, I should follow this team, or I'm a transplant and I still like AFL, I'll follow Brisbane because I'm in town and I understand the game. And so you've got to do stuff that cuts above, gets through the clutter of everything and say, well, what can I get just to pique their interest? So the toughest thing after success is the second album, right? You go do the successful viral video. So what's the process now to say, okay, guys, let's come up with it, because the brief of go do me a viral video, Anthony, is impossible. Yeah. What's the process for you guys to go, what are the things we're going to do, and hopefully one of them sticks? Yep.
Well, very lucky that we have a really good content team here. We're always ticking over ideas, or they are at least. I just had another one the other day we wanted to do, and we probably didn't do it just in the end. It was a bit hard. Yep. But just trying to sell more memberships. We're coming, the classic Australian ad here when you went to the movies was you don't steal movies or you don't steal a car or whatever kind of thing. So we're going to rip that kind of thing off. Just trying to bringing popular culture into it, have a bit of fun where we can and get the buy-in from the players. That's another big thing. But you're right, it is very hard to follow up the second act.
But it is like for mine, it's a bit of a mentality and a little bit of, you telling the team, there's no bad idea. Throw it out. There. We'll put it on the table. Figure it out. If it doesn't work, it's not going to go against your performance review because we want to be creative and we want to find a spark. And you're not going to figure out what's going to be successful in a meeting room.
Correct.
Right? You're only going to find out when you put it out there and the fans go, "That's awesome."
Yeah.
So it's a bit of it's a mentality thing as much as what's the best idea.
I think we're really good with throwing ideas around in Slack.
Yeah.
Whenever we see something good, whether it be another AFL team, any team around the world, any brand, we chuck it in there and go, can we rip that off or can we do a version of that?
Yep.
And that kind of gets everyone ticking over. So, we keep our eye across, every other league and code as much as we can.
Yeah. So I want to finish things off with the Sports Geek Closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event that you ever attended?
Well, my dad tells me he took me to the last game at Windy Hill. I vaguely remember it.
Yep.
The first game I really remember going to was probably a year or so later with Essendon playing Collingwood out at Waverley Park. Being an Essendon family growing up, obviously he wanted me to support Essendon. Essendon won, however, Collingwood kicked the last 5 goals of the game and I left wanting to be a Collingwood supporter.
Oh, that would have devastated him.
So he took the morning off work the next day, went to Kmart, bought me an Essendon jumper and said, "You're never supporting Collingwood again."
Yeah, see, as I said, most kids don't get a choice.
No.
I think I was at a Collingwood family day once, and a little girl was running around that just had a number on her back, but it didn't, and went to have a name, and it just said, "I don't have a choice." That was on her back. It's like, at least we're being honest. You would have been at a lot of sports events over your journey and your travels and working. Do you have a favourite food memory or a go-to food at a sports event?
A go-to food will be a bit hard because I'll eat anything, but a food memory. So at the NBA, and it's going to sound very first world.
No, that's all right. Go for it.
But the NBA used to have permanent suites at Madison Square Garden and Barclays, and we used to have these ticket raffles essentially where you go in and try and get these tickets. I won tickets to the Hulk Hogan Appreciation Night of all things at Madison Square Garden. So I went along to watch that, but it was in a corporate suite.
Yep.
So you rock up to the corporate suite, there was an open bar and just all the food you could ever imagine was there on the right.
So you have great appreciation for Hulk Hogan now,
correct.
I guess.
I love him. And his number or whatever.
He got retired for the number.
He got retired, yeah. And then the next night there was an NBA game, whatever, and the thing wasn't there anymore in the rafters. So it was a fun 24 hours for Hulk. His jersey or ripped shirt had been retired to the rafters.
What's the first app you open in the morning?
I'm Twitter or email, normally Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter, just see what's happened.
Yeah.
Make sure none of your players have done something stupid.
Well, yeah, that too, definitely. But I actually don't mind the catch-up thing.
Yeah,
I always get that in the morning, and if anything major's happen, I normally find it in there.
Yeah. It's about time they got the algorithm to say, what have I missed?
Yeah, basically.
It's getting it pretty close to right. I agree.
But thankfully, our players don't mess up on social media.
No, exactly. It was just joke. But it's always a media manager's. Yeah, it's like as soon as you've said that. Is there someone that the podcast listeners should follow that you like, either someone you've previously worked with, an author, or someone that tweets, or a player, or whatever? Who would you say that they should give a follow and check out?
I would follow. I like John O'Simpson. He used to work for him, which obviously is a bit biased, but he's really good with getting across sports media stuff, jobs going around, any trends. Basketball point of view, Ben Falk is a former analytics guy. He used to work for a couple of teams, and now he breaks plays down. He breaks down a lot of stuff from a team first point of view, which is really smart. He started his own website. He's really cool.
What's
I love
his
reading
website?
him. Is it Cleaning the Glass?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah.
He's really. I haven't subscribed, but I've seen a bit of his content, and well, you're pretty good for keeping up with social media news as well.
Thank you. So I get you to answer this from two points of view. What social media platform is your MVP? So Kevin Durant style, you're the real MVP. But from the Lions point of view, and then from your point of view, Anthony?
From my point of view, it's probably Twitter again, just because in media, you need breaking news, you need to keep up to date with all that kind of thing. Twitter's for me in that sense. I think from a platform point of view, I reckon 12 months ago I would have said Facebook without a doubt.
Yep.
Just because of the reach and everything we've talked about. Everything you've talked about now has changed that a bit.
Yep. And
also, our audience is more on Instagram now, I think, too. And Instagram is changing a lot, and it's evolving and updating.
The fact that it's a dual product now. Your stories is its own thing.
Correct.
And it's done a good job to steal as much from Snapchat. The fact that everyone I'm talking to is getting stacks of engagement on the stories.
Yep.
And then it's like, well, what do we do on the picture? The side, what do we do on the actual feed?
Yep.
But the growth of Instagram is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it's just rocketed past Twitter, and the engagement, and that you're not alone when people are saying, oh, the engagement we're getting on this platform is amazing.
Yeah.
Now, this is a story we've heard before from Facebook, right? So just be warned, everybody.
It changes pretty quickly.
It can change pretty quickly, but it's definitely the one that most teams are getting a lot of traction with at the minute.
Yeah, and you got to adapt to it too. So now everything's algorithmic. We don't put quarter time and halftime scores up anymore as a post.
Yeah,
you put it up as a story because it's gone in 24 hours. Because it was always weird when you'd be scrolling through and then you'd see the end result, and then about 5 posts later you'd see the halftime score and be like, that's not right.
But even more disappointing, you see the boys are fired up after you know the result.
Yeah.
You're like,
gee, that looks really fired up. What happened?
Yeah. So where can people find you on the internet?
Just on Twitter mainly. I'm at Anthony Alsop, just my name. Nice and original.
Nice and easy. There's you did your best to grab your handle. There was no other people. So that LinkedIn and the like. I'll share the link.
Everything is /Anthony Alsop.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, and hopefully by the time this is aired, you do have a win in the win column for the Lions.
Fingers crossed.
Download our Facebook campaigns guide at sportsgeekhq.com/FB campaigns.
Thanks again to Anthony Alsop from the Brisbane Lions. You can contact him via Twitter at Anthony Alsop. That's ALSOP. Send him a tweet and tell him that you listened to the episode and you've checked out what the Lions are doing at Brisbane Lions, available on most channels. Quick recap of C2 Montreal. Absolute blast. Enjoyed it. Finished off rocking with Snoop Dogg, or Snoopadelic as his DJ name is, on the final night. Couple of key takeaways. For me. From a format point of view, I absolutely loved the brain dates. So it was like Tinder for your brain in setting up different meetings. I ended up having 18 curated meetings where people booked in to talk to me about sports and fans, or podcasting, or just Melbourne. And it was really good. People who were going into the Brain 8 Lounge were really open for really cool conversations. So I'm really looking forward to reconnecting and following up on those conversations. But I really, big thank you to the E180 crew and Sylvain and Anne especially, who are always accommodating in the Brain Lounge, in the Brain Dates Lounge. Also love the Brain Labs, the different ways. Transparent one was really cool, around looking at the way that you perceive people and potential exclusions that you're doing, and sort of open your mind on that. I tried the self-hypnosis ones. I don't think I meditated enough to really get the value, but it was apparently under there for 8 minutes, and it felt like 2 minutes, so something must have happened. And then some of the content that was on the big stage, it was good to listen to, not just listen to Snoop as a DJ, but to hear him talk about the marijuana business and how it's growing in Canada and some of the opportunities that are going to happen, and also how it's affecting sport, obviously around pain management. And some great sessions on entertainment and AI. So I'm still going to put together my thoughts and a bit more content about C2, but I now understand it. So thank you to Martin and Leah and the C2 team for inviting me. C2 Melbourne in October, 17th to 19th of October, will will change things. I do like the tagline. It's a conference that reinvents how we network. I'm a networker. And I absolutely loved it. So looking forward to C2 Melbourne and C2 Montreal next year with their theme of tomorrow. So I want to see how we can get sports a little bit more involved with C2 Montreal. As always, if you want to get in touch with me, or if you want to look at potentially booking me for your conference or your next event, whether it be an internal event or a fully fledged conference, you can go to sportsgeekhq.com/keynote. I'm actually heading off after recording this to do a keynote at Punt Road Oval down in Richmond. Testing out a new keynote around my book that I am working on. I spoke about it earlier in the year. I've actually got to start putting pen to paper or pixels to screen if that's the case. But I built a keynote and a workshop out of that book idea that I've discussed previously. So you can go to sportsgeekhq.com/keynote if you want me to speak at whatever size group. And as always, you can contact me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. Stay tuned for the Sounds of the Game this week. This is from my time in San Francisco. Again, thank you to future guests. Stay tuned. Spoiler alert, Bill Schlau at the Giants game where there was a sack fly and Buster Posey score. So that's the Sounds of the Game at the end of this episode. As always, you can send yours in. But until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Join over 1,000 sports business executives in Sports Biz Slack. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/Slack. Please share your fave episodes of Sports Geek on LinkedIn. Be sure to tag Sean Callanan.
Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.
Want to chat with Sean? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.